everyone, it's Diane with Let's Have a Conversation, and today's guest is Terresa Bakner, and she's an attorney with Whiteman, Osterman, and Hanna, a law firm down in Albany. And I got to know Terresa because she's been assisting us first with King Thiel Senior Community when that was being developed and constructed, and now with the prospect of maybe another building, we're going to have her be working with us again. So Terresa, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and have a conversation.
Happy to be here.
So this is one of your boardrooms here.
Yes, that's right. We're up here at Commerce Plaza. It was built in 1950, and it's one of the iconic buildings downtown.
Yeah.
Not as pretty as many of the others, but it's a nice building.
Beautiful view.
Beautiful view.
Yeah.
Best thing about the building.
I was saying to Mike DiGiuseppe, who's with me today, about I used to have, you had like a breakfast club here.
Yes.
And like maybe once a month or once every 2 months we'd come and you'd have a different speaker, and it was a lot of fun.
And we're going to be doing that again.
Are you?
We are, yes. As soon as COVID is over, the goal is to get back to doing that. We tried to have people who were exciting and interesting in the community, like we'd have notable authors every once in a while. And then we had a lot of policymakers, people who worked for the government. So it was great because, you know, once a month it kind of took you out of your regular schedule, and you could meet and hear about meet new people and hear about interesting stuff.
Yeah, it was great. Oh, I'm glad to hear you're going to start it again. Great. All right, so Terresa, let's start from the beginning. So where were you born?
I was born in Waynesboro, Pennsylvania, down in Franklin County. It's kind of a industrial, agricultural area. A lot of Amish people live down there, a lot of Mennonites, a lot of River Brethren. So that was the family that I came out of. So we were a couple of generations away from farming, but we were still like my husband's sister is a Mennonite. Okay. And so I have a picture of my great-grandmother all dressed up as a Mennonite. So she was actually a River Brethren. So I have a picture of her in a bonnet. And it's just, it's a beautiful place. It was a great place to grow up. And my dad was a minister, so we traveled a lot. So we lived in Indiana for a while in farming communities. And we lived in various places in Pennsylvania. So we got around.
So River Brethren?
Yes.
Now I've never heard of that.
I'm not sure there are any anymore.
Oh,
it was sort of like a sect of Mennonites. If you're familiar with that area of Pennsylvania at all, it's all Palatine Germans. Mm-hmm. And then a few people from Ireland that came in to run the foundries. So my family came from both. I didn't know that for sure until I did that crazy DNA test, the 23andMe.
Were you surprised?
I was shocked because half the stuff my family had told me was wrong. They would tell me things like, oh yeah, we had Native Americans in our background. No, anything interesting, not there. It's all like Irish and German. Not bad by any means, but it was not, it was not like having Native Americans in your background. Nothing exciting like that. And so anyhow, so we grew up down there. My husband's also from there as well, and we met in high school. So it's been a long haul.
It's been a nice haul, I assume, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So now your dad is a minister of what type of religion?
Protestant, United Brethren in Christ, gotcha. And then he was with a few other churches as well. He passed just last year.
Oh,
so.
I'm sorry for your loss.
Yeah, he was. It was hard because he was in Pennsylvania still. I was in New York, and my brothers were in Ohio and Oregon.
Oh God! In the middle of a pandemic, right?
Yeah. He actually passed before that, thank goodness, because he would never have stayed in.
He was social.
He would not have stayed in or worn a mask.
Funny. So you have two brothers?
I do, yes. Lee is a professor of psychology, and my brother Jeremy is a vice president at Nationwide, the big insurance company. So, yeah.
Now, where are you in the lineup? Oldest, youngest?
I'm the oldest. I'm the aged one. I just turned 59.
Oh, good for you. though.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
It's better than the alternative.
Right, that's right.
They say. But
So you said you met your husband in high school.
I did, yes, in Greencastle High School.
Oh my,
That's right.
Population, what was your graduating class? Was it big?
It was like, I'm going to say 300.
Oh, all right. Oh,
Yeah.
that's not tiny.
No, it wasn't. They had consolidated schools in Pennsylvania, so
Okay.
we all had bus rides into the towns and villages, and so it was, it wasn't, you can have really small districts out here, like where we live
Yeah,
in Duanesburg, where they might have 80 kids graduating.
Yeah.
So,
Now, I'm curious, you talked about the Mennonites, you talked about the Amish. Do they school their own children, or do they ever go to a public school?
some of the Mennonites go to public school,
Okay.
but I would say the Amish have either their own schools or they do homeschools, but they have really, really very small schools. And then the Mennonites, a lot of them do homeschooling.
Gotcha.
That's a very big thing in Pennsylvania. A lot of people homeschool their kids.
Yeah.
So at
Well, good
least
for them.
they didn't have a lot to adjust to as far as COVID.
Right,
let's put
right,
it that way.
My kids are probably very lucky that I didn't homeschool them. This is why they're like, oh my.
I don't know how the people. I mean, my kids are 30 and in their 30s and 29 now.
Okay.
My youngest is 29, so they. I can't imagine trying to work and have small kids and teach them at home and get my work done. How could
stay
you even
sane,
do that?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, seriously, I'd be like, oh, forget it. I'd be the one outside with no mask. I'd be like, enough of this. So your oldest is 30.
He was born in 1988, so
Okay.
he's like, I'm not very good with math. He's like 32 or 33.
And your
somewhere
youngest
between.
is 29.
Yes.
So
yeah.
my middle just turned 29 yesterday.
Oh wow.
And it was interesting because I thought, God, 29. I mean, I think the older I get, the faster time goes.
That
I
is
just
true.
couldn't believe she's 29.
That's true. Well, every year goes fast.
Yeah.
The summer's almost over.
I know.
You can't make it stop, and it does seem to get faster as you get older.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a true phenomenon or if it's it just seems
Quicker.
that way.
So now you're in Pennsylvania. Did you get married in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, we got married in Pennsylvania. We were both at Penn State University.
Oh, nice.
And then Ed came up here to take a job at Knowles Atomic Power Lab. And I went to law school at Albany Law School, really because it was the closest. But it was such a difference between Penn State and Albany Law School. Penn State at the time had like 30,000 people.
Huge.
Yeah, it was very diverse. It was very. It was just people from all over the universe were
Right,
there.
right.
And then at Albany Law School, it was very small and very, at that time, non-diverse.
Right.
You still felt as a woman that, you were kind of there on sufferance, you know what I mean? But it was. I learned a lot, and I'm really, everything turned out fine for me. I've always worked at Whiteman, Osterman, and Hannah. I've always liked
Good
it.
for you.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed it.
Wow. So when did you graduate from Albany Law?
1987.
Okay. All right. Oh, wow. Good for you.
Yeah.
So what is that, 34 years since you've been here?
Yes, that's
Oh, my
right.
goodness.
Yeah.
Now, did you always know you wanted to be a lawyer?
I did actually.
Did you?
I did, which is weird. I don't think that's very typical. So I always did want to be a lawyer. I always liked the idea of problem solving, of trying to help people, address whatever it is that they're having difficulties with. I think initially you view yourself as, being in the courtroom and all that, and I think I've been in the courtroom like 2 or 3 times. And it was funny, when I was at Penn State, we had this course called the Politics of Scarcity.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always interested in, sort of like the, nuclear war. Those issues were big when I was at Penn State between 1980 and 84. It was like Ronald Reagan had just got elected, remember? And they were talking about the START treaties and everything, and that was all, a big deal. And then people were predicting the end of oil and gas, remember, back in the 70s and 80s. And now you're like, we're in, 2021, and we're like, not so much,
Yeah,
right?
right.
But what really changed how I viewed myself as doing, being in the law or being a lawyer was working here with John Hanna and Dan Russo. And I always had this view that that the environment was important, but I really only had ever heard in school sort of one side of the environment. And then the other side was always these corporations who were just polluting for the fun of it. And then when I came here to work, I realized that the corporations were in fact creating products that were used during World War II by the military. And a lot of those products had unintended consequences in terms of disposal and discharges into the environment. But as an environmental lawyer, you're in a unique position to try to help people really address those past problems and make sure going forward that they don't happen. And now, of course, we have all the emerging contaminants and sort of a general realization that EPA and the government has not been able to keep track of how creative people are at creating things that can cause problems. So what I've always liked to do is advise clients on compliance and stuff, and how you make sure that whatever you're doing is not going to have a harmful effect. And then the vast majority of what I do is helping people build things, just like you guys with King Theo 1, where here we have a huge need in the community, senior citizens who are limited maybe to Social Security as their backup, just like my father was, and they need a place to live. So how do we build a place for people to live and have good years of independent life left?
Right.
I think that's good. I've also worked on a private facility in Market Rate in the town of Guilderland, because we have a huge population of people who are getting older, in which I am included. And we're all going to need some place to live besides a house in the middle of nowhere, But we also do a lot of work, and I work personally on a lot of distribution centers. So we just got there was a 1 million square foot distribution center approved like a year before COVID, and we just got an over 200,000 square foot distribution center approved. So what we work on invariably is whatever it is that people want to build, and they only want to build things that people need. So it's very random. Some of the more fun stuff that I've worked on is Woodstock 94 and Woodstock 99.
Really?
Yeah.
So what did you do? Look at the environmental impact of having an event?
Yeah, but it was more like helping them get the mass gathering permit from the state, and you had to have like 20 plans in order to do it. Like, here's a plan for how we'll provide people with medical services. Here's a plan for water. Here's a plan for sewer. Here's a plan for just crowd control, stuff like that. It's very basic, but very interesting. And in '94, I got to go up on stage like right before the first act played.
Cool.
And see all the people. Never seen so many people in one place.
Wow. Now, how many people were in the Woodstock area in 1994 for that?
Well, it was in the town of Saugerties, and it was right off the thruway, so it wasn't the original Bethel site, which was, they call it Woodstock, but it was in the town of Bethel, and then in Saugerties, and then in '99 it was at the Rome Air Base. So in Saugerties, the big problem was it rained, it got muddy, and it was a mess.
Just like the original, right?
Right. There's a theme, right? But the music was fabulous, and people generally had what seemed to be a good time, maybe a better time than it should have been.
So you attended the event as well?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, that's so cool.
I did. Yeah, it was good. We were providing assistance in the background and stuff, and just to make sure things went smoothly. And it was It was a lot of fun. It certainly got you attuned, because it wasn't just about the old music, it was about the new music that was going on at that time too. So it's like I knew what was popular in '94 and in '99, and otherwise I just listened to whatever's on the radio. But it was fun. It was exciting.
That's so interesting, because I would never think of an environmental attorney worrying about the management of a huge concert.
Well, just the boring aspects of it, you
But
know.
the important aspects.
Well, yes, you do. Yes,
Traffic flow and
traffic. We did a lot for traffic. The one in '99 was super successful on the traffic front, because the air base already had a lot of excellent traffic routes to get there, and this was in the city of Rome, so it wasn't in the lower Hudson Valley where you get more traffic congestion. And the the air base was a great location for it, because a lot of it was asphalt or cement, and you know, and so we didn't have the mud pit. We didn't have that kind of problems. We had other problems. Apparently, just when you have large people together, you just have problems. But I remember going out in the morning and seeing teenagers asleep on the cement. Right? They get up, they're fine. It's like, it's an amazing time of life, apparently. You can sleep on asphalt and wake up and still have a good day.
So
Not
funny.
true for me, but yeah, it was interesting.
Now, you were showing us a few photos before we got started, and
Right.
we had a couple of photos. You were kind of in one of the pillars of the Tappan Zee Bridge.
Yeah, we worked with another law firm on the permitting for the new, now it's the Mario Cuomo Bridge. The former Tappan Zee Bridge, they gave us a tour of the bridge so we'd understand how it was constructed and, you know, what the issues were as far as removing the bridge and that kind of stuff. And so most of the bridge was floating piles of wood. That's what held it up.
Really?
Floating piles of wood, right? And then in the middle, in the navigational in the navigational channel, there were huge caissons sunk down into the dirt of the Hudson River until you'd hit the bedrock. And inside, those were hollow. So they walked us out underneath the bridge with all the traffic going back and forth on top, right? So you're down there. I remember we're walking across and a car carrier goes by, and it's the loudest noise I've ever heard in my life, right? It was so noisy. But anyhow, then they took us to the caissons, and there were ladders down into it, metal rungs, so you could see what it looked like inside. And so we got to go down in and take a look. What purpose that served, I don't know, but it was very interesting.
Was it scary?
No, it wasn't scary. No, because we were walking there with the throughway people, and you know, it was very safe at all times. But it was interesting because you drive across that bridge all the time, anytime you want to get to New York City, and you don't realize what's underneath it. You just see the driving surface. You don't see the posts that hold it up, and you don't see the whole substructure, which you could actually walk across on.
Yeah, that is absolutely amazing. So you're not one of those people who gets afraid if you drive over a bridge. Have you ever met somebody like those?
Nervous about it?
Yeah, no, I don't. We used to go to the Ocean City, Maryland for vacations, and he'd stop at the Bay Bridge. Mom would take over, and she'd drive across. Then they'd switch back.
Oh, that's so funny.
But it is scary. Yeah, and I've known other attorneys here who are not. They'd go out of their way to avoid the 787. You know, as it goes around for the same reason.
Yeah. Or people who don't like going on a round.
We'll avoid that.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Nobody can avoid those these days. There's a ton of them. And actually, they're very interesting. We worked on the Luther Forest Tech Campus with the LFTC EDC, and they worked on putting in roadways for that campus, technology campus, and that was some of the earliest use of the roundabouts. But they're very popular now, and supposedly they work much better.
Right, they're supposed to be more energy efficient, so that people aren't literally stopping as long as the traffic
And
light.
running into each other.
We're all learning.
It's like exit 12 of the Northway, there's like 5 or 6 of the, oh my gosh, it feels like you're going around in circles.
About that one, I think it's easy to get dizzy doing that, and then you've got to figure out which lane to get
That's
in
right.
to go down the highway.
No,
Not
I
so
agree.
easy.
Oh, that's
That's funny. Now, so is your husband still at Knowles Atomic?
He went off with a startup company,
okay.
and he's been doing that for several years. So he's still into nuclear energy.
There you go.
Yeah, he's convinced that's the solution to the energy crisis, along with hydro.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't think much of solar or wind, and we've worked on reviewing a lot of solar projects and getting permits for wind projects here, and part of the problem is they just don't last as long. They have a much shorter life frame than a gas plant or a nuclear plant.
Right.
I don't think anybody's building coal, so I don't think that's an issue. And certainly nobody's building nuclear in New York. So.
Well, it's interesting, on the way into work this morning, there was somebody, I was listening to NPR, and there was this group that is really promoting nuclear energy,
Yeah.
as a way of combating the climate crisis that we find ourselves in.
Yeah, it is very interesting because it has absolutely no emissions.
Right.
So it's the manufacture of materials. I've seen criticism of it in terms of cement and the fact that cement is very energy intensive, creation of cement, but we need that anyhow.
Right,
So
right.
I don't see us getting away from cement for bridges and stuff. One of the really interesting clients that we do work for is Shelter Therm, and they make these polystyrene formed, well, I don't think it's polystyrene, but it's like, remember those old igloos that you would get to put Coke in and stuff in the summer? That, well, they make that, and it goes into bridges to take the place of voids or places that would otherwise be
that's fascinating.
cement. Yeah, you never think of that, but it's another way to really cut down on the use of materials, heavy materials with lots of emissions.
So it
sounds like your job really allows you to learn almost every day, I would assume, depending upon what you're working on.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. We do a lot of work with threatened and endangered species.
Okay.
We do a lot of work with wetlands. Every time somebody needs to cross a wetland to get to an area that's not wet, they need to get a permit from the state and the federal government, so we assist with that. There are a lot of endangered species that are located in areas, and they're very diffuse, like bats, northern long-eared bats and Indiana bats, although most of the Indiana bats are extirpated now. And we also have done work with the Karner blue butterfly, which is, that's more in your neck of the woods, Saratoga County, northern Albany County. And it's like a very attractive endangered species.
Right.
You get a lot, we've had a lot of projects involving rattlesnakes, which are protected species.
Really?
Yeah, I had a friend who was doing a tracking study. They put little tracking devices, they glue them to the snakes. I don't even want to know
where they go.
how. Yes. And they found out, that they like to hang out under the bleachers at a local school.
Really?
Not in this area, I hasten to say, but yeah, interesting. You do learn a lot of interesting stuff.
Now, so you're worried about endangered species. Do you ever do anything with invasive species? It seems like a lot of
big
discussion about plants that are being released into the communities, or these insects, our poor trees.
Yeah, well, in the past 20 years, maybe even 30 years, but certainly the past 20 years, both the state, especially the state government, a little bit the federal government has been paying a lot of attention to invasive species like the emerald ash borer that's killing all the ashes, and also a lot of plants which are very invasive, like the honeysuckle, the giant parsnip, that if you cut it open, it actually will burn you.
Yeah, that looks like a huge Queen Anne's lace.
Yes.
Yes. I almost picked one of those once.
Yes, it's very easy to think it's pretty and safe, and then you open it up and it spills orange sap on you, and that's a problem. It's growing very strongly in ditches everywhere. It just gets drug along. And the problem with invasive species is unless you can find a way to naturally control them using a predator, like the blue loosestrife has a borer type insect that has been developed and released from Cornell.
Oh, cool.
And you can do a lot of control using that, because it'll knock it back and prevent it from expanding. And it's worked so far.
Yeah. Well, if you think, you don't see any cattails, right? Because the loosestrife is kind of taken over.
Yes, that's the problem with it. It takes over habitat of species like cattails, perfect example, which can be eaten. The roots can be eaten
Of a cattail?
of a cattail, not by people,
Oh,
but by do not do that, by muskrats and stuff.
Oh,
they
okay.
eat them. Yeah. Well, when we do wetland creation projects, sometimes they'll go out and they'll plant all this nice tender stuff, and then geese will eat it, and muskrats will eat it, and they have to start all over again.
No.
Yeah. So it happens. It happens a lot. And then those big tall things, Phragmites, big tall reed grass, which is kind of raggedy looking.
Yeah.
That stuff is also invasive. It grows everywhere, and it grows like, what is that stuff? It grows through rhizomes in the ground, so it's extremely hard to get rid of. There's a lot of them. And as the climate changes, as it gets hotter up here, we'll see more and more stuff just naturally move in and push out other stuff. So it's not always something you can fix.
Right, yeah. I heard something about a black vulture. It's something from the south, and it's migrating its way up, but it eats rubber. So it'll go and it'll eat your windshield washer, your rubber. Oh my God. Yeah, which is interesting.
That is interesting. Hopefully it
Ay.
eats dead animals too.
They like rubber. That's what I heard. They like rubber. But.
We'll have no tires left.
So I'm curious, what advice would you, are either your children in law? Okay.
Either my children are lawyers. My daughter she got her degree at SUNY Cobleskill in ag, animal science.
Wonderful.
And she ultimately, at some point, would like to be a vet. Right now, she's working in retail, so she's working for Tractor Supply as a manager. And then my son it's hard to describe. He is an electrical engineer, computer scientist, and he writes code for robots.
Wow.
So he's
Smart kid.
he works at iRobot.
Very cool. My goodness. Wow.
Yeah. So he really was. He went to RIT, and then he went to Carnegie Mellon as a graduate student, and they were working there on autonomous cars. So that's what kind of got him into the AI robots stuff, and all the computer coding and everything, which is. So nobody wanted to be a lawyer. Nobody wanted to go to our alma mater of Penn State. So he
But if you think about
You
it,
think about it, you've kind of gone back to your roots. So you said your family was agrarian, right? Agricultural.
Oh,
and,
yes,
and
yeah.
in some, now you're an environmental engineer, and you're talking about invasive and endangered species, and seriously, flora and fauna going on. So
With the animal science.
I have to. Tractor Supply is my husband's favorite store. Tell her that. It's like, no.
Tell her that. It has literally everything.
It does. It does.
And-
For somebody, right?
Yeah. Well, it was funny. We worked at a distribution center for them
Oh, okay.
out in Herkimer. They have a brand new northeastern. Well, it's not Herkimer. Let me not say that. This is the town of Frankfurt. And
So more stuff in stores is what.
more stuff in stores. That's right. All those little cheapy chickens. All those little.
All that stuff you don't really need, but you want. Yeah.
don't really need what you want. Yeah. Now I'm curious, what advice would you give to anybody, a young woman, or a woman maybe who's had a career and said, you know what, I've always wanted to be a lawyer?
I would say be open to possibilities in the law once you go through law school. Try not to be too narrow, because you may or have a preconceived notion about what you'd like to do. I always thought I'd like to do family law. That would not have been good. And you know, you're going to get exposed through your really when you go out and you work in the summers as a law student to a lot of different types of careers. And the great thing about law is there's just so many things you can do. You can work for private law firms, you can work for the state, you can work for the feds, you can work for corporations, you can work for small businesses. The great thing about law is how versatile it is. And I think it's, when you read everything about the Me Too movement and everything, you know, it's really hard for women who go out there who haven't had the college degree and don't have some kind of professional license. It's just that much more difficult. You face so much more just sort of discrimination than I think you do in legal positions, particularly now, because the law firms try very hard to have, you know, policies in place, maternity leave, paternity leave, you know, leave so you can take care of ill family members, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So it's a really good area to get into from that standpoint. Plus, at least if you do something like what I do, like you said, every time I meet a client, it's a whole new thing. You know, it's a whole new, more interesting topic or view on life. You know, we even have, you know, clients who just participate in every area of life. Like we have residential home builders we work for. We have people who build apartments we work for. So you really see everything that gets built, you know. And I enjoy that. I've always enjoyed that. I've always enjoyed that.
You can sense how much you enjoy your profession, which is lovely to see, to be honest with you. No, honestly.
I think it would be tragic not to have a job that you like at some point in your life. And, you know, the good thing about going to Penn State and then going to law school was, in between, I could have jobs I didn't like.
Which gave you motivation to finish. I had those too. All those chapters.
Right. Some of them very short.
Yeah, and don't end well. Nothing wrong with chapters. No.
No, we did. I had a terrible telephone solicitation job. I was calling people up to see if they wanted their carpet shampooed. That was awful. That was just.
And you still remember it.
Absolutely. And but I had a lot of other jobs along the way that were cool. But you know, I would say get out there, do things, experience life, so you can really know what will make you happy, what you'd like to do, as opposed to, it's the opposite of COVID. Don't stay home.
Right. No, you're absolutely right.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. Yeah. Well, this has been most enjoyable. Thank you so much. Thank you. On behalf of our staff and board of directors, thanks for taking the time to have a conversation.